All right, guys, welcome back to the Buck Fever podcast. Got another classic episode today. Just Noah and Jake here, gearing up for a big trip coming up this weekend. So that's why the other guys couldn't join us. They're spending a little bit of quality time with the family here before a substantial amount of time off chasing some deer around over for the Minnesota gun season. But a couple weeks ago, we had talked about some of the pre-rut stuff, the rubs and scrapes and the activity that we were seeing and what to expect there and kind of how to hunt it. And now this time of year, when's this going to come out? November 2nd. We're like in the heart of the rut at this point. So figure we could spend the first part of the episode kind of talking about some of that since we had talked about the pre-rut a little bit, and then we'll probably preview our trip here because I know we're super excited for that, and that should be a good time with some good content coming out of that. So I know you were out. You've been out every weekend, but I know you were out this past weekend, buddy. What was the rut activity looking like for you?
Well, it was started off on Friday when I was driving up there, and my buddy Wyatt gave me a call, and who hunts not too far from where I do, and at like 5 o'clock, he just said he shot one, and I was stoked. I was just rolling in about 15 minutes away. I said, "Hey, I gotta stop at a house quick, and then I'll be on my way to pick up the four-wheeler and pick up some other guys, and we'll be over there." And that was the only buck he saw all night, he said, but he shot it at 5 o'clock, and he was kind of. He said he was, scent checking coming through, and I'm like, oh well, they must be starting, and that was so. I mean, besides that was an awesome to go along the trail and see that really good deer. So that just started the weekend off right, and obviously I don't have a buck tag, so Saturday morning I still went out. I was gonna shoot a doe maybe, and saw 3 little bucks. 2 of them scent checking. The other guy was checking scrapes, and I only got to like 9:30, 10 o'clock, got down, did some stuff around the farm, and headed back and waited for Dad to come up, and he got up there, and we snuck down into the farthest part of the pasture where, I love hunting down there.
Yep.
A lot of encounters with some good deer down there, and sure enough, we get down there pretty early, hang a stand. I end up seeing 7 bucks and 2 shooters, 3 2.5s, 2 year and a half, so all no does, and they were all up on their feet early, walking around, so it was. I think that the bucks are starting to go. The young ones are for sure ready. I just don't think the does are quite there yet.
Yeah, and that's almost like kind of the best time is when the does aren't quite there yet because I saw it firsthand, just getting literally run ragged. I mean, just constantly, they were just running circles around me. It was unbelievable. And that's almost better, I think, because when they are ready, they're not moving as much. Right now they're getting pushed around, and those bucks are chasing.
Right.
So you saw all those bucks, but no shots or no big ones, or
there was our big boy. He never ended up coming out. I just saw him through all the thick stuff, and I could hear him just making rubs in there, just breaking branches and stuff. It was pretty cool, actually. And then at like 4 o'clock, we had those 2 bucks come out together, which I also thought was kind of weird. Why a 2.5, a pretty good 2.5, and then a 3.5 are together, this late in the year and not fighting.
Right.
But I think they were just laying down, not, I don't know, 80 yards from us in the swamp, and they got up and came out, and I got some really cool footage of them, and I didn't recognize either of them. They're both brand new bucks, and I get pretty jacked up pretty quick, and I was like, oh, here we go, and the first one came out, it was a 2.5, and he's a good 2.5, he just needs a year. And then the other one came out, he's a shorter tine 10, but he's got some mass and great deer to shoot, and I'm filming, and comes out to like 60 yards and just milling around. I throw a grunt at him. Nothing. Wanted nothing to do with it. He like spooked him almost. So he kind of got out of there. And other than that, just a couple deer here and there throughout the rest of the night. Pretty much saw deer all night long, bucks. And then, 6 o'clock, that other one that we call PT came out. I caught a glimpse of him and I could hear him raking, but just nothing. Never showed himself. And then, we got down pretty much right away because we're like, well, all these deer are in here. We might as well get down while we can type thing. So it was a
Right.
pretty good night. And we ended up going back there in a similar stand the next night and saw, what did we see? 2 bucks and a handful of does and fawns. And the one buck, little buck, was just chasing this doe and she wanted nothing to do with him. He just grunting the whole time. But I know you had quite a Saturday night, if I do recall.
Oh, I had a Saturday.
Probably one of your best days ever out there.
It was for sure my best day. But I was gonna ask you. I'll tell that whole story. But I was gonna ask you, how much grunting and rattling did you try to do?
Um, I did like 1 or 2 rattling sequences, which I don't know. I'm not saying it got those bucks on their feet, but I don't know if maybe got them curious. And they came out 15, 20 minutes later. But I just, yeah, I don't know if it's just, it's just a little too early, at least by us, to where they're going to respond. And I grunt at the little ones and they didn't really care at all or know what was going on. And sometimes I'll do a couple grunting sequences and, nothing's came running in yet. Like last year I had that one, I think that was November 3rd when he came in. So I think like this weekend, I'd assume we're pretty darn close, especially with the weather we had,
Right.
Getting fired up. So I don't know. I'd say this last weekend I was pretty conservative on it, but if I was going to be in Wisconsin this weekend, I'd probably go pretty hard. Not that even in Minnesota, if we go or when we're there, I probably will be pretty aggressive too, just because they're even farther west. So I'm assuming that rut started even up a little sooner.
Yeah, we're for sure gonna go after him pretty hard this weekend. But I noticed a similar thing with the rattling and the calling, and I just I don't know. I was a little bit baffled by that. I tried some different rattling sequences, and that never amounted to anything on my end, which it never really has for me. I know last year my dad rattled one in pretty good. I forget which day that was. And obviously it works. I'm not saying it doesn't, but for whatever reason at this point, that was not something that they were responding to. And on that property, we're pretty close to a highway, so there's a good amount of road noise. The wind was fairly constant this weekend, so there was plenty of wind that was drowning out a lot of noise. I mean, I had deer that were sneaking up behind me that I never heard, and usually
Right.
you can hear them pretty decent. And I have a hat on and my hood up and whatever because it was a pretty cold weekend, but
Yeah.
just not really hearing them. So I don't know if that had something to do with it.
Yeah.
I sat all day Saturday, but Ben got out after Saturday morning and then went back in Saturday afternoon. And just the stand he was sitting in, to get out, he had to walk past me at 35 yards. And I mean, he snuck up on me too. I couldn't hear him walking, crunching on leaves at 35 yards. So that may be a factor. I don't know how much they could really hear that. If I'm rattling at deer that are 200 yards away, maybe they just weren't hearing it that well, or grunting at a buck that's 75 yards away. Maybe he's not really hearing that. I don't know, but they did not seem interested. But like you said, I had a pretty unbelievable Saturday, and honestly, our trail cameras were not spectacular, but we quickly realized why. Leading up to that, and then Saturday, I sat all day. My dad sat all day. My mom and my brother came this weekend, so my mom sat with my dad in the morning, and then Ben sat in the stand that I was sitting in the weekend before when I shot that buck that we ended up not being able to recover. And so he was in a prime spot. I was in a prime spot. I was actually in the hang-on stand. So as I think, I took those climbing sticks down the weekend prior after I shot that buck and we didn't find them because it was looking like rain all weekend. this past weekend. And so as much as I wanted to hunt, I was like, if it's raining the whole weekend, I really can't justify it. I don't think I'm going to go and sit out in the rain like that. So I got to take these down now just in case we don't make it. And if we do end up making it, great. I'll probably sit in another stand, or if I really want to sit in this one, I'll just have to rehang the ladder. But I knew we were going to need those sticks for Minnesota. So I took them down. And then on Friday, which was, working Friday and then going to drive there Friday night, I started thinking to myself, boy, I'd really like to sit in that stand all day on Saturday, because I think we had a really, really nice buck that showed up in daylight, the past couple of days on that camera at that stand. And I just figured I'd see a ton of deer there. So I was like, man, I'd really like to sit in that. And I don't know that I want to be hanging those climbing sticks up by myself in the morning before getting out there. So I called my dad on the way and I was like, I'm kind of thinking about hanging those sticks up if you want to go in there with me and hold a flashlight. So we actually ended up doing that. I think I rolled into town at 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then, we put a coat on and headed out there. And because of the new access that we got this year, it was, really easy in and out. It's the closest stand to that access on the south end of the property. And so we just got in there. I hung those sticks up in a matter of 10, 15 minutes and backed right back out. And the following morning, that's where I sat. And I think as a group, as a family, we saw more deer on Saturday than we've seen total in some seasons combined. I mean, it was unbelievable. I walked out of the woods speechless. I didn't even know what to say when I got out of there. I've never seen anything like it. It was just an absolute parade. I never went more than an hour without seeing deer, and this is sitting all day. So we're talking like midday. I'd go from 11 to noon without seeing one, but I saw one at 11 and I saw one at noon, just unbelievable action. So I had a buck chasing a doe as I was climbing up my ladder in the morning. So we were talking about this, not on the podcast or everything, just texting back and forth, but we've been getting in there pretty early. So I think I walked and I dropped Ben off at his stand at probably 6 a.m. that day and got back to my stand at 6:15, and it's not really light until like pretty much 7 o'clock. So we were in there pretty early, but I had a buck chasing a doe at that point, just grunting up a storm. And then I just saw deer after deer after deer. I think on Saturday I saw 5 or 6 like definite shooters, and I had been pretty loose as far as what I was considering a shooter this year. Pretty much, any 2.5-year-old buck, that's it. Any 2.5-year-old buck. A small little basket rack, probably not, but like 2.5-year-old 8-point, I'm shooting it 100%. Anything bigger than that. But this was, I was seeing, 3.5-year-old deer. Like I was seeing really, really good bucks, and I had them with some of them within 30 yards. And, the stand that I'm hunting in, it's kind of in this transition area along what used to be a power line. They actually took the power lines out. So now it's just like this clearing in the woods, if you could picture what that would look like, where a power line used to be, that we mowed down and planted a food plot. And it's been great, and it's kind of right in the middle of this travel corridor, so it's actually a really good spot. And I saw tons of deer, but even though they were close enough, they just, when they're in the woods on the other side, 30 yards from me, there's no shots in there until they step out into that food plot. And for whatever the reason was, I had the right wind. I don't think they were really smelling me. They were never alert to me or anything like that. These shooters were just staying on the fringes. So that was kind of one of those things that it was like really, really cool to see, but also kind of frustrating when you have 5 or 6 shooters within 30 yards, in shooting distance, and you can't shoot any of them, all for different reasons. Pretty frustrating, but trying to grunt at them, absolutely zero response. Not even looking at me. I mean, just nothing. They did not care whatsoever. And I had, like I said, a couple that snuck up behind me. I had one right at dark, like right at the cusp, that came from behind me, never heard him, never saw him, never nothing. And by the time I finally saw him, he was in the last 2 steps of my shooting window. And he must have been 145 inches. He was just a giant, just a huge buck. I couldn't even believe what I was seeing. And I stopped him at 35 yards, get the camera over there, try to draw back, and he stopped for 3 seconds and then kept right on moving down the trail. And I stopped him again 10 yards later, but, by this point he's at 50 and he's in the woods and he's not responding, not doing anything, and off he goes. And like I said, I walked out of there just in complete disbelief. I probably saw 50 deer that day with shooters like that were 3.5-year-olds, really nice, mature, big bucks, and all super close and just no shots. And honestly feeling a little bit defeated despite having such a good day, just because we weren't able to make anything happen. And then honestly kicking myself because I thought I learned my lesson. I've talked about it on this podcast before, but a couple of years ago when Gabby had a really nice buck in her backyard that was showing up during this time of year, during the rut, and checking the fields. And I was like, yeah, I don't think we should put a decoy out there because sometimes that scares them, and I just don't think it would be the right thing to do. And after we saw him one night, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that had we had a decoy out there, she probably would have had a chance at that buck that night. And it just completely slipped my mind to tell my dad to bring it. And, he said he was kind of going through the hunting stuff, the night before, and he picked it, he was like rearranging stuff, and he actually moved the target / decoy and didn't even think of it. And so it just completely slipped my mind, and I was just kicking myself because any of these bucks, all I needed was another 5-10 yards on any of them just to stick their neck out of the woods, just pull them 2 more steps. And when you have 5 or 6 of them, you got to figure that if I had a decoy out there, one of them probably would have bit and given me the extra 2 steps. Not saying they would necessarily would have gone right up to the decoy, but it might have pulled them just enough to give me the shot. And I'm just kicking myself because now I know going into Sunday, like, we still don't have it. It's, it's not an option. So I sat in a different stand Sunday morning, and I ended up seeing a shooter at like 45 yards, just out of where you can shoot them. And then about 45 minutes later, I saw the same shooter heading back in the direction that he came from earlier at about 50 yards and, completely unresponsive to a grunt call, not a care in the world, just doing his own thing. And meanwhile, my dad is seeing, and Ben saw some shooter bucks at 45, 50 yards, just nothing reading the script. And my mom and dad sitting in that gun stand across the field, they saw tons of deer, tons of shooter bucks. Would have been tough to get a shot at any of them just based on where that stand was. But, I knew that with the mobile setup, I easily could have gotten to a spot out in that field with a decoy set up and pulled one of them far enough to get a shot. So just completely kicking myself to have not given myself that option because I think it would have worked. But yeah, man, just an unbelievable weekend, unbelievable Saturday. So many nice bucks. And then, the biggest kick in the pants was the days following, waking up Monday morning and 7:30 rolls around and a buck walks right past the stand my brother was sitting in at 25 yards, not 45. And then he walks past the stand that I was sitting in at 15 yards, not 30. And then Tuesday rolls around, same thing with different bucks. Today was Wednesday, and we had a shooter do the same thing at both of those stands. And this one was substantially bigger than the Monday or Tuesday bucks. So just the ultimate kick in the pants of, we gave it what we could for the weekend, and now this week that nobody's there, they're walking right past the stands, right where you need them for a shot, and nobody's out there to get them. But I guess it's, there's positives in that, to be seeing those bucks on that property, because a lot of that has to do with the work that we've put in to get it to that point, but also a little bit of frustration there and not giving ourselves a decent chance at it. But yeah, that was that was last weekend. So I think it's safe to say, I think we'd both agree that by this weekend, you're definitely going to want to get into the woods. I think the rut is going to be in full swing by this weekend, wouldn't you say?
I'd hope so. I mean, I hope my dad and uncles can kill some. Obviously, if they wait till I get back, that'd be awesome, so I can be there. But I hope they do shoot some anyway. I just love being around it. I mean, it is insane. Like, even just tracking deer, when Wyatt asked me, he's like, "Yeah," I'm like, "Dude, like, you just, like, a whole flip switch is like, you're just insane how much this means to everyone, or to us, I should say."
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And there's going to be plenty of that, the deer camp and the camaraderie and everything this coming weekend, and a couple days off of work here too. So if you want to kind of touch on this upcoming trip that we're going to take here.
Yeah, just one thing though about your weekend. Yeah, it's a little bittersweet. I mean, seeing all those deer and not getting a shot, but at the same time, it's like, we're seeing all these deer. So there's always that bonus or plus of, hey, next weekend type thing. It's not as discouraging if you don't see deer, where, dude, I just had the best weekend of my life with all these deer. Yeah, I didn't get a shot, but at the same time, it's like, we get to go back there, that's always what keeps me going.
Right. Yeah, I know. The hardest part for me is, like I said, this past week being at work, and with these cell cams now, I'm like, I want to shut off notifications from that app, because I can't be sitting there at work at 8 a.m. with pictures of these bucks walking past my stand. That pisses me off for the rest of the day. I mean, it is unbelievably upsetting. I think, as much as you describe the love that we have for, hunting and tracking, and even if it's not a deer that we shot, like, just being out there, the disdain for not being able to do these things and having to work and do all that is just as strong. It's like, oh my God, man, if we could only just do this. If I could be off all week, think of the deer that I could kill. Think of the hunting that I could do. It'd be unbelievable. So that was like the biggest thing for me. And just this past week, seeing these deer, I just almost can't stand it.
Right. No.
Even though it's such a cool thing, like, it's great to be seeing all these bucks and whatever, but not being able to hunt them then is really kind of a downer.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But also, what I keep telling myself too, in my own personal situation, is, I had my chance at a buck the weekend before, and, whatever happened with it, wasn't able to recover it and all that. So, ultimately I can't really complain too much, not that I'm, obviously I didn't give up on it or anything, but it's like, I had my chance, I can't ask for too much more than that. You're not always going to get multiple chances in one season like that. So, especially for us on that property, just for my dad to shoot one and then for me to also have a chance to shoot one, like, that's never happened before. And then to have a rut like this, never happened before. So it's already a banner year, even if I don't end up shooting one.
Right.
But, we have even more of an opportunity being in Minnesota this weekend. It's a whole other thing. If you want to kind of give a little overview of that.
Right. No, I'm stoked. Like I was saying earlier, I got to work 2 more days, and then I'm off the next week after that. So be doing a lot of hunting, whether Minnesota and Wisconsin, and just I probably won't be able to sleep honestly for the next couple nights. So I'm super stoked, trying something new. Going to Minnesota on public land, something we've never done before, which you know, I wouldn't really say nervous, but not sure how it's gonna go, but also at the same time super excited. Probably more excited than anything.
Yeah, I mean it's uncharted territory for us. It is their gun season, which is kind of interesting. It is how early it is. Pretty much during the heart of the rut. But it is shotgun or muzzleloader only. So what's your weapon of choice this weekend?
Muzzleloader.
Okay, and I'm gonna be bringing the shotgun. So that's kind of cool. We're gonna have that diversity of weapon there. It should be interesting. I shot it, sighted it in and whatever, so I feel comfortable with it. But I've never hunted with it before. I know the range is somewhat limited on that shotgun. You start getting out even to 100 yards, and it gets a little bit tricky. You kind of have to have a perfect shot there. I don't know. How do you feel about the muzzleloader compared to your 270?
Um, Kicks a lot more.
That's for
Puts
sure.
a puts a heck of a hole in the target too. I'm excited. I'm kind of opted out for that. I probably could have got a shotgun. I think a couple people I know have them, but I want to be able to poke out there.
Yep.
Even I'd be pretty comfortable shooting 200 easy with that muzzleloader. So, I think that's kind of cool that, if one comes out or whatever and you're up to bat, or, I'll just give you the muzzleloader type thing and you shoot, or, vice versa, anything like that. So I think that's cool that we have one each to go with.
Yeah, and I mean that also wouldn't be a bad way to kind of split things off too. Like if it's if it's a shot I can't make with the shotgun, then you take him with the muzzle loader, and that we kind of it's cool to have that option too, that we can cover all those ranges. If we were both with shotguns, it'd be a little bit tougher, so it's good to have that option.
Quite honestly, if there's one at 50, 25 yards, I'd probably rather shoot with shotguns.
Right? Yeah, I agree. And hopefully we
So,
can get somewhat close to him. I mean, I'm gonna shoot out to 100 with that shotgun, which is nice because there's 5 or 6 shooter bucks that had I had a shotgun last weekend, I could have picked my poison on them. So if we can kind of replicate something like that this year, even if we get out to a field, I mean. I don't want to give away anything about where we're hunting or whatever, but depending upon how that public lays out, I mean, there's a chance we could be hunting over an ag field that's on public, and maybe it's cut corn, and maybe you're having bucks that pop out and they're cruising that, just checking for does and whatever. So it's definitely going to be interesting, a whole new territory for us to learn, but I think it's going to be pretty cool.
yeah, I'm pretty excited. I think, going like you were saying to different territory, that it will be fun, and also, you don't have to worry about messing up. It's not like we're going to our own properties where, we blow a deer out and we're like, oh no, type thing.
Right. So what's your mobile setup look like?
I've got I don't even know what tree stand I just bought. I just went and picked out the lightest one possible. I was like, and then some 4 sets of or 4 sticks to climb. So pretty much a hang on with sticks, which isn't desirable. I don't think it'll be, well, at least what I'm kind of thinking is we go in the morning and then scout it out and hang it for that mid morning and sit the rest of the day type thing. If we're in a good spot. Obviously, I don't have a saddle yet, which I would love, and I will be getting this summer. If I had one, that would be my mobile set. But for now, it's just um, a hang on and stick. So
Yeah, I've got a similar setup too, that with the hang on and sticks. I pretty much went out and bought one that I could find that seemed like it was going to be fairly light, fairly cheap, and fold up nicely. Um, Make it a little bit easier to try to carry and whatever, because we're probably going to have plenty of that going on. But yeah, so strategy wise, you kind of touched on it there. Is that what you're thinking? Kind of take the morning to scout things out, try and figure out, where we might want to set up, and then go from there for the rest of the day.
Yeah, right. I I think that's kind of the plan, scout it out and then almost figure out if this is a spot we're sitting the rest of the night or what the deal is. And then if that is the case, then I say we, hang our stands and get comfortable. So
Yeah, I think, for the most part, there's probably not going to be too much, going back to deer camp during the day to watch football or anything like that. We're probably going to be trying to maximize and make the most of our time.
oh, for sure.
Hunt as much as possible and whatever. But yeah, it's going to be a good group of guys over there too. I think 5 of us are going, and so it's obviously going to be a good time. Hopefully we can get something out of this. Ideally, somebody shoots a buck or a couple of us shoot bucks. That'd be pretty cool, and obviously that would make a good video for us. But I think we're going to try and shoot some podcasts too, like we did when we had our little preseason get together at Colby's place. Just hang out, maybe have a few drinks, and talk deer hunting a little bit at deer camp, because those tend to be some of the best nights of the year. So
For sure.
yeah, definitely.
Wait for that.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. What to kind of wrap this up here? Obviously things can change, and we got to go off of what we're seeing. But do you have like a threshold here, like a goal, like what buck that walks by is going to get that trigger finger a little bit itchy? What's your threshold?
Well, it depends on the day, I suppose.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, they might go down a little bit being on public land. And if we get into some, I wouldn't be afraid to shoot 2.5 for sure. Obviously, the first 2 days, I'm going to be holding out for a fairly nice one.
Yeah, I think I'll be in a similar boat. I probably have a lower threshold for what I would consider a nice one to be. I think it's going to have to get to Tuesday before I'm going to shoot a 40-pound fawn. But, like you said, a nice 2.5 is probably gonna get the trigger finger a little bit itchy. But, it'd just be fun to get out there and hunt together again. We only got to do that once this year, so it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Just see what we can see and see what we can do on new property in a completely different state.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I think that about does it for this episode here. We'll wrap things up, and stick around, guys, for the weeks to come, because we should have some good content coming out of the Minnesota deer camp here, whether it's some good podcast episodes or some good videos. That something good is definitely gonna come out of this here for us. So we appreciate you guys watching and listening. We appreciate all of you that have subscribed to our YouTube channel. If you haven't already, we really appreciate it. Please go and do that. Hit the like button on this video if you're watching on YouTube. You know the drill, all this stuff. Thank you guys so much for supporting us, and we will see you guys next time.